A lot of people feel let down by the conventional healthcare system, so they're turning to functional medicine to unlock their health. Today, we're talking to triple board certified physician Dr. Lisa Coach about how this could be a game changer in your life.
From the Stream Center, welcome to Bloom Health Club, sponsored by Monticello Family and Sedation Dentistry.
Welcome to Bloom Health Club. I am your host, Gail Guayardo, and our guest today is Tampa functional medicine and biohacking expert, Dr. Lisa Coach, who was so forward thinking in this. Dr. Lisa, welcome to Bloom Health Club.
Thank you for having me, Gail.
And Dr. Lisa, I want to introduce you to my good friend and our director, Terrence Middlebrooks. He's going to be behind the scenes switching the show, but he will be jumping in with some questions as well. Hey, Terrence.
Hey, guys. Thank you and glad to be here.
So, as you know, Terrence,
Yes.
Dr. Coach has been so forward thinking in this realm. I mean, long before biohacking was a buzz term or functional medicine was a buzz word, you have just been right there at the forefront. What led you to this type of medicine?
I like to say I was gifted with childhood leukemia. So at 15, when I was diagnosed, I felt fine. I went for a camp physical and I asked everybody around me, why did I get this? Why did I get sick? And fast forward, nobody had any answers. So when I couldn't get the answers I was searching for, I decided I'd go find them myself, went to med school to figure it out there because, they'll have answers in med school.
Yeah. And then you found out not
And
so
then
much.
I found out, no, they had absolutely no idea why people got sick.
Yeah, they only know how to write a prescription or maybe mask the problem, but very few doctors went to the root of the problem. And that's basically what you built your entire practice over.
Well, I was very lucky because most doctors in functional medicine field or in the integrative space got sick after they were already indoctrinated, after they'd already been trained by the traditional system. For me, because it was at such a young age, it was a nightmare, but it was a gift because I went in without any veil over my eyes. And so I saw where the benefits were because I'm definitely not one of these people that's going to poo-poo traditional medicine. There are lots of pearls there.
Yeah, and that's what I always say on Bloom, our globally syndicated show, is that traditional medicine is so important. I mean, if you break an arm, you need a doctor that can reset it and put it back together. If you need open heart surgery, we need these skilled surgeons. So I am certainly by no way, shape, or form poo-pooing on traditional medicine. But why do you think it fails so many people?
I honestly, the problem is bigger than than you see at the surface. It's in our training. So when you go to medical school, we're taught if you have this diagnosis, this is how you treat. So it's a lot of protocols. And this is just how we do it was the answer I got throughout training. So I think it's a deeper issue. Doctors are not the problem. They're the byproduct of a system that needs to be refreshed. Like it really needs to be shifted into root cause medicine. And luckily, when I went through my training, I found that internal medicine was the broadest approach to the why at the time. So I went into that field because it was broader. There was a lot more answers to different symptoms. And then I was accompanying it on my journey of my practice with self-taught nutrition. Functional medicine became a thing when I was maybe 10 years into my practice. I found out about it. And you can't just dip your toe into it as a practitioner. It's like you're falling in the deep end. And I was able to do that.
And talk to me about how you look at people as an overall picture. Like you even go as deep as the nervous system.
Yeah. So when you look at a patient, and again, this was gifted through my own journey, but through those of my patients who have been some of my greatest teachers. When I see a patient, one protocol may really work for one person, and then the next person comes in, it doesn't touch them. So then I have the same question, like I'm treating this person with integrative things, with nutrition. I'm looking at their gut and their thyroid and their hormones, but they're still having an issue. So that brought up a lot of deeper root cause digging. And one of those things that came up was an unbalanced nervous system, how it can block healing of all types.
Let's talk about our gut health, which is a wreck for most Americans. And sadly, and this happened even to me, we think we're doing the right thing. We think we're reaching for the right foods, but we're not. And in turn, it all kind of starts in the gut.
So the gut, because it's such a huge surface area, if it's not happy and healthy, there's no way you can be. And what happens is, whether it's toxin exposure, whether it's glyphosate in a lot of our foods, whether it's Advils or things that are sold over the counter, and the overuse of antibiotics, most people have a gut that's out of balance. And when that happens, you're chasing your tail as you try to heal.
So how do you get people's guts back in balance? We're looking at, whole natural foods, but man, you got to even be careful with that. You mentioned glyphosate, and that's the same ingredient used in Roundup. And there are more and more research. At first it was deemed safe, but now we're finding out it's not so safe when you look at some of the studies that have rolled out.
As the American public especially, it's really hard. So you can do your best, but even the organic food is being questioned at this point. And my biggest advice to people is try to do local as much as you can. If you know you're a farmer, can we go back to some of the basics? A lot of medicine now is going back to prior to what the medical schools have done. Like, can we live locally? Can we eat seasonally? Though that's number one, is really cleaning up the food that's going in.
You talked a lot too about our adrenal glands, something that, you hear all about, the mitochondria. We hear a lot about that. How does that play into our health?
When you look at root cause medicine, I kept stepping back because things can get super niched in functional medicine too. And then you overdo supplements just like you overdo drugs. So as I ask the question, we get down to the level of the cell. And that's where the nervous system, the cell membrane, your mitochondria really come into play, because if your nervous system is off, your adrenals are off. If the cell is under stress, the cell membrane becomes damaged. So if we can repair those basic things, give the mitochondria back the capacity to produce energy, many of the symptoms and diagnoses across the board are going to get better. It's simpler than we think.
Yeah, and Terrence, you can jump in at any time, but I was going to say, you've been the director of our show. You've been on our show. You're a contributor. I mean, we hear about these breakthrough ways of healing, and I think the viewers very much receive it.
Absolutely. The question I have for you, Dr. Lisa, is how often do you consult with your patients about nutrition, but reading the labels and understanding what is in our food?
I ask that question at every visit, and I think it's, people are tired of hearing it, but they're also not asked the question. It's an interesting one. So there are now these apps like ewg.org, which has made it easier. So the technology is helping, because then you've got a barcode that you can use, put this barcode, the food, into the app and get a green light, then it's okay. So that really has helped.
Yeah, when you talk about gut health, that's a start, right?
Yeah, the gut health is a start. So before I go into heavier detoxification protocols or really working on balancing thyroid hormones, adrenals, if I can't get the gut healed, we're chasing our tail to a certain degree, because a lot of those problems come, for example, hormonal imbalance. If the gut's not working, the liver gets overloaded. If the liver's not working, you can't process estrogen and other hormones appropriately. So.
Yeah, and we're starting to see that all of the body system is tied together. You talk about the thyroid, our hormones, our gut health. That even circles into our bone health. I'm finding out that, it's unbelievable when the body is off balance, it starts to have a ripple effect of things that become sick inside you.
Yeah, and it's like whack-a-mole, right? Like,
yeah.
Let me get this one. Now this one's popped up. Let me pop this one. So that's, for me, being a constantly curious human in my own body, along with those of my patients, it became, what's the same in all of these complaints? And it's the health of your cell. So if you go down to the very core, the smallest parts of our bodies, at the cellular level, if the mitochondria or the cell membrane aren't working right, you're literally not going to have the success that you want to see with all these great protocols.
Something I wanted you to explain to our listeners and our viewers is how just a regular screening at your doctor, and again, it's incredibly important that you have a good relationship with your doctor, but sometimes the blood screenings that they're looking at don't dive deep enough to give the answers that you really need. So what can somebody do? Because there's only so much that insurance covers.
I love this question. It's got two sides to it. So I can tell you a real quick patient story where a patient called me. It was a family friend, urgent, because she couldn't get anywhere with her doctor. She found out about labs she could order online, found her own thyroid problem, called her doctor saying, I think I have Graves, which is a hyperactive thyroid. And the doctor said, we are primary care. We don't treat that. You need to see an endocrinologist. Okay, endocrinologists are booked out for 6 months. And the beauty is when you go to the cellular level, you work on the gut, you work from a functional medicine approach, you can do tons of things for something like Graves that is not urgent, emergent. So these labs can be, these more advanced and comprehensive labs now are becoming direct to consumer, but there's a dark side to that too, because I'm seeing people who don't understand ordering these things, trying to manage their own health with ChatGPT. And then they get maybe a little success, and then eventually things can fall apart, and then they want to come into a doc, and it's very frustrating for the practitioner at that point.
So what would you suggest? Because a lot of people don't have discretionary funds maybe to visit a functional health doctor, even though I always try to say on my show, if you can save up a few $100 and get that one initial meeting to find out what's going on, and we're looking at endocrine disruptors, where we're exposed to so many products in our life that are making us sick. So maybe you get to the bottom of what's going on with your blood results with one good hour sitting down with somebody like yourself.
Yeah, I think that is a great idea. And there are some practitioners who take insurance but who have a broader awareness of functional medicine who will at least order those labs. So maybe if your listeners want to call ahead before they go in, see if there's knowledge base, have a list of functional medicine testing like labs, a broader lab panel, and maybe call ahead and say, hey, is this doc okay if I bring in a list of labs I'd like to see? And if you could even just get that panel and pay to get that reviewed with somebody who really understands it, that's going to help a lot.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Lisa, I'm pretty new to all of this information, even though I do work behind the scenes with Bloom, and I've watched your segments the many times that you've been on. But my true question, and I'm sure a lot of people who are listening are asking this same thing, other than living in a bubble, what can we use? What can we put in our bodies? What can we put on our bodies?
So I love this question because you see these biohacker influencers out there, and they're living on the land, or saying, they're doing these ridiculous things that, sure, they're really cool if you have limitless funds and no job that takes your time, or like kids or people pulling on you. So I think the answer, it's a really valid question, is just do one thing, right? Like use that free app and scan your food, and try to just take the dirty dozen out of your diet, which there's a list of the foods that have the most pesticides. Clean up your products. We're seeing these products on the show right now which have endocrine disruptors, carcinogenic products that are like banned in other countries. It's not more expensive to swap those products out. You really can find reasonably priced alternatives.
I think it's easier that when we walk into the pharmacy, or if we're going to get lotions, the products that we know are right there in our face. And I think to your point, it's just to do a little bit more studying of these products, and what's in them will help you live a longer, better, healthier life, correct?
100%. And you know what? Some of the most impactful interventions besides just working on the products and the food are free. What does that mean? Put your feet in the earth.
Right.
The earth provides electrons. It helps stabilize our nervous system, and our mitochondria gets energy from it. Connect to a tree. I talk to my trees. Hydrate more. Throw some sea salt and electrolytes in your water. Get that morning sun. The morning sun exposure helps with our circadian rhythm. Our bodies are innately brilliant, and there's so many things they can do when they're just given the right terrain, the right environment.
And I want to go back to what you were talking about earlier, because we dedicated an entire hour to bringing in local farmers, a farmer that had goofy goats, and she was making goat milk and goat cheese and all these things, and now she's making goat soap. And then I had another friend that watches, and we've had her on the show, from an all-natural dog. I saw this segment, Gail. I'm going to start getting the goat soap for the dogs that has the citronella to get rid of the fleas. If you go to your farmer's market and start going back to nature, like you said, I mean, I was raised on a farm in Brandon, Florida, and we didn't have all of these chemicals. My grandmother cleaned with vinegar and water, and we used a bar of soap. Now, I don't want to go that far back in time to wash my clothes, but at the end of the day, just stepping back in time just a bit could be what you need. And you don't need all the food that you see on the shelves. Just buy whole foods that make you feel full.
Yeah, I've got a crazy story about even taking this to the next level, which is medical technological advances and how sometimes they go too far. So I had to get a pacemaker for my heart that was damaged from chemo. And when I went in to get it replaced, this was just a couple weeks ago, I said, well, what's new and exciting? Tell me it's smaller. Tell me it's going to last longer. They said, well, now it's got Bluetooth. Okay, so it's the same point, because then you've got me saying, I don't want Bluetooth in my body. So we got to turn that stuff off. So just because there's advances, whether it's in the cleaner products or whatever angle that is, food that can last longer on your shelf, a pacemaker that can be tracked right from your phone, does not mean that's what's best for our bodies. Can we go back to where it was a little bit simpler and our bodies could take over a lot easier instead of fighting chemicals, fighting electromagnetic fields?
Yeah, and speaking of which, and I don't know which way to go on this, because I was like so data driven. I had a ring, I had a watch, I had to be micromanaging everything with my health. And then my Aura ring fell in the disposal. So that was $500 down the drain. And then my Apple Watch just wouldn't charge anymore. And I thought, I wonder if I should be wearing all of these gadgets at all the times. Your thoughts?
Doesn't the universe bring us lots of messages? Throwing it in the disposal. So I can tell you personally, this is something I dance the line with as well. I'm a bridge. I think the data can be super helpful, but I think people get taken over by it. So I have a love-hate relationship with my Aura ring. And if I feel like I had a great night's sleep and I wake up and the thing says I didn't, well, that's starting my day cranky. Like, right. I'm mad at that ring.
I didn't get my crown.
Yeah, I didn't get my crown. Or I worked out and it didn't pick it up. What the heck? This is not okay. So I think it depends on your personality type and if you can take it for what it is, which is just an additional piece of information. It can be super helpful. You'd love to see what impacts your HRV, but I think maybe small doses. Like that's what I do, is I'll wear it for a couple days, get some data, and move on. When patients of mine from a nutritional standpoint are asking about their diet, the continuous glucose monitor that everybody's wearing can be super helpful, but you don't want to keep that thing on. That's no fun. Right? I don't want to know that I can't have dessert occasionally. So, but at the same time, if I wear it for a week and I see, well, crap, that black coffee spiked me up and it didn't come down for 3 hours, then maybe I'll skip that.
So, I'm sorry. You said the continuous glucose meter, correct? Mm-hmm. I have a friend who's a diabetic. So, are you basically saying that even diabetics should be cautious about wearing that, because it is a Bluetooth device and it scans your phone? And
so I love what you're asking, because you're bringing up an example where it's probably more bang for the buck and healthier to stay on the thing. But even with diabetics, so diabetics is what the continuous glucose monitor was made for,
right.
And they can they're tweaking their insulin or medications using the help of the monitor, and that's
without
different.
Pricking their fingers
Correct.
so often.
It's
correct?
just right on their phone.
Yep.
That's an amazing technology, and it's only for a 7-day period.
Right.
When I talked about having something in your body, that's like 8 years of continual Wi-Fi. That's what I was talking. So it's the same point, right? Dancing between the worlds.
Yeah.
Like dancing between, and what really comes down to is critical thinking.
Right.
Where's your brain?
Right.
Like, let's take each scenario, discuss it like humans are supposed to do. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing.
Okay.
And then decide
I'm about
what's
to throw
best
away my
for you.
AirPods.
Yeah.
I'm getting rid of my Apple Watch.
Yeah, Terrence, you got
me
too
nervous.
much radiation
I'm
going
telling
on
you,
over
yeah.
there.
Well, the AirPods, I can't give you anything good there. Those are a no-no.
Those are a no-no.
Yeah, they now have some studies on what they do in the brain, but there's companies that have proven, like, they're just back to wearing headphones like we have on right now.
This is
Old
great
school.
information.
I'm going to go back with a box on my shoulder, like back in the
box.
day. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Before we get to some of our viewer questions, Dr. Coach, do you see any like common denominators of issues that people are dealing with that if they do have that first visit and they're not feeling good with the functional health doctor, that they should maybe ask about, like, is it my thyroid? Is it stress levels? I mean, what kind of questions should they be asking a doctor like yourself?
I think if you're going to see a regular doctor and they're not finding anything obvious on your blood work and you're still feeling really tired, which is what I see a lot, it would be a question of what other tests can we do? What other tests will give us some deeper information as to the potential root cause? Like, could it be that my gut is really off? Maybe I have bacteria or yeast overgrowth, and there's microbiome testing that can be done that a functional medicine doctor can order. Could it be my thyroid? Like you said, I had my TSH checked, but there's so many more labs. And when you go deeper with the functional medicine doc, they can find them.
Okay. Before we get to our viewer questions, I want to thank Monticello Family and Sedation Dentistry for believing in Bloom Health Club and sponsoring our show. We so appreciate that. Our first viewer question is, why does functional medicine focus so much on gut health? I know we kind of touched on this earlier.
So it focuses on gut health because a lot of the treatments that are given are going through an oral path, right? So if you're going to take supplements and your gut's not in a place to absorb them, it's not going to work. Plus, if you've got toxins that are supposed to be gone with the poop when you're moving your bowels, but it's not working, the toxic load staying so high that the work you're doing is probably not going to have the benefit.
Okay, which leads us to our next viewer question. Are detox protocols really necessary or safe?
I would say the answer to the safety aspect depends on which one you're talking about, and they go all the way across the board. So work with a practitioner ideally with that, but they are necessary. We're exposed to so much. I mean, just the plastics alone. So there's more and more coming out every day on how to get that stuff out of your body.
Last question. How much does lifestyle matter compared to supplements or meds?
Lifestyle is everything. If you're in a chronic state of stress, if you're eating food that is not natural from this like synthetic food, if you're not sleeping, nothing else is going to help you heal.
All right. Triple certified physician right here based in Tampa, Florida, Dr. Lisa Coach. Dr. Lisa, how do folks find you?
drlisacoach.com, Dr. Lisa Coach on social media, on Instagram and Facebook, and Spectra Wellness is our practice here in Tampa.
And that's Coach, Koche, not the kind that you throw the ball for. All right, Terrence, thanks a million for switching for us today. We love you, buddy.
Hey, this was fun.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I will definitely be back.
All right.
Thank
Sounds
you.
like a good plan. And you can watch our streaming show, The Bloom Health Club, on Apple TV, Fire TV, Roku, Samsung TV, WFLA.com, and YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. See you next week on Bloom Health Club. We'll be back.